Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and I wanted to talk about a personality theory that I had in my planning days at work. Um, we got to go to a hotel for 2 days, and we got to just hang around with each other. Yay! And they brought these team building experts who made us take a test, a personality test, and I was like, yeah, best part of the day, you know. Um, for me, who's like obsessed in BDI stuff. Um, but so we had to take a test, and then we were. This was like the simple version of the test. It's called the IDI, which is like intercultural something something. I took out a page. Um, I don't know if these are the Swedish terms or the English terms. They said that these are English terms, but I don't know because you cannot take the IDI free online from what I could see. I haven't found the link yet. So basically, this personality test is for work. So it's for bosses to know about uh, their underlying coworkers, their employees. Um, so obviously, the system is not really something I'm such a fan of, because I find I don't like this Big Brother aspect where that like you're classified according to your personality type in how you work. Of course, they said that every type is important and they're all important for the workplace. Um, but it felt a little bit implied that some groups were more important in just our workplace than others, um, because certain workplaces need different things. Um, I felt like I don't really relate to the type that I was placed in. Um, they say that it's more complicated than four groups, that you can become, there can be 16 personalities within this because, like you could be number one this type and number two this type. And also the thing in the system is that you can change and you can be the other types. Um, if you become more adaptable, if you become more flexible in your thinking and in your competency and at work, then you can change. You can go across the map, different days, different for different projects. But so the test was a lot about like introversion, extroversion kind of questions, and then thinking, feeling kind of questions. Um, and but the axes are completely different. So basically, it's a chart where you have on one axis um, you have dominant on one side and ambitious. You have a drive on one side, and on the other side, you basically follow along. You don't really have the drive. I mean, that's where I classify. Unfortunately, that doesn't. For me, it's unfortunate because I mean, our bosses are usually on the driven side, and they're pretty bossy, and that's where they end up. So there's that axis. Driven, not so driven. Following along, follows like just does their thing. Decides stuff, doesn't decide stuff. Okay, so that's one axis. Then there's the top bottom axis, which is a little bit more complicated to explain and to understand. So I didn't really like the example he gave us, but it seemed like it was formal at the bottom and informal at the top. Um, and if you're formal, then you don't want to meet a lot of new people. You are more set in your ways. You're more analytical. If you're at the top, which is informal, you're more into like wanting to meet new people, wanting to do new ideas, and maybe you're a little bit more on the openness scale, and a little bit quicker in your thoughts, as opposed to down there in the formal where they need to construct an argument or construct like they have to think a bit, you know. And so those are the two axes. And then according to the axes, you are in 4 different groups. So I'll start with the bosses group, basically, or the group where most bosses end up in. It's where you are driven and where you are informal. And that is the motivators. And the motivators are like super into doing tons of stuff and have new ideas, and they want to implement ideas, and they want to get their ideas to start, they want to do stuff. They want to motivate others to get on the same line as them. They really want, and they're fun people. And that's where my boss is, that's where the nurse's boss was, that's where a lot of excitable extroverts, mostly. But there weren't only extroverts, I don't think. But people who like starting things, doing things, excited to do things. So that's where the motivators were. Then on the opposite end of that spectrum, you were a processor, where you are more follow along, less driven, more that you need to take your time because you're formal. You need to take your time, you need to process things, you need to logically analyze things and not take a lot of risks. I would guess that maybe an ISTJ would end up in that group. It's more like you need to sit and think. I was almost in that group, but I wasn't. I think I could have ended up in that group, because I do need to take my time to think and stuff. And I like, I don't like doing 10,000 things at the same time, you know. It stresses me out. But I ended up in another group. I ended up in a group that's above, well, on the scale of formal to informal, I was on the informal side, and I was at Relator, which is like, obviously the feeler group. This is the group that the most important thing is to, at work, well, they're follow along and informal. So they're really into just like making sure that everybody gets along and making sure that the solutions to things works with everybody. A lot of FE users in that group. I don't know if I was misplaced there or if I should have been a processor. I mean, we are P users, like we are perceivers, and perceivers are, I guess, more on the informal side of that scale. We get along with everybody, basically, as relators. Get along with everybody. We're not too set in our ways, but we want to go with the flow. But at the same time, maybe we're not as analytical as the processors who need a lot of time to like think up a solution to a problem. Maybe we're more prone to taking risks as relators compared to the processors who really want to make sure that everything is good before it's time to go. So I can see the motivators and the processors have a bit of a conflict in terms of like tempo, where motivators were like, go, 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 we need to do all this stuff, this is great. And the processors are like slower and, you know, a little bit more like, wait a second, like maybe that like crazy idea needs to have some risk analysis done before we put it into practice. So there's that end of the spectrum. Then there's the relator that is kind of on another spectrum. And on the opposite end of the relator is the producer. and the producer is in the driven and formal. And I'm guessing that maybe INTPs can be in that. I think a lot of NTs would be there, but also STPs. The doctor that I was talking about who was using TI ended up in that group. They're kind of more loners than any of the other group. They're driven, they want to get to the goal, no chit chat, just do the stuff, and don't. They are into questioning things, but it's on their own terms, like they're driven in their own lane. And they're direct, which is good. But they can be a little bit aggressive, and so that's why they're on the opposite scale from the relators, who want everybody to get along, basically. So that's why I think it's the FETI axis kind of thing going on there. But you could also think of the producers as T users as well. But they're definitely more thinkers than the relators, who are definitely more feeler. And then the motivators are much more extroverted, it seems, and the processors are more introverts, because they need to think a long time before they can get out into the world and do the stuff. So that was the dichotomy of the IDI spectrum, the IDI tool, or whatever this is called, the index. I don't know how much I believe in it. I do see a lot of people were laughing, and it was like great doing this, because we were put in different ends of the room, and then we had to talk about how it's easy to get along with us, or what other groups need to think about in order to work well with us, and to make people see that we work differently. And for people who have never taken a personality test before, I think that they found it really exciting, and they found it really relevant to their jobs. I think I like MBTI a lot more, and I understand it a lot better, and also MBTI can be used in other things than just workplace, but it is a pretty good model to use to explain to people that why we work in different ways, because I think some people just don't see that. They don't know. Well, they see that other people are working differently, but they just think that they're working less good, less well than what they are, and they get confused as to how these guys keep their job at work. So I know that the producers probably are frustrated at the relators, for wanting to make sure that everybody's happy, as opposed to just getting the work done. And the relators are like, why are these producers so cold, and why are they not participating in the, in coming to drink a coffee with us, and motivators are like, why are the processors taking so much time to can't we just get this idea going? And the processors are like, these motivators are pressuring me to do these these impulsive, risky things. So it is a good model. It has limited use, unfortunately. But I thought I don't know if there's any video on YouTube about this. So I'd be interested to hear if any of you guys have done this testing, maybe at work, or if there is some kind of free test that you can do online. I don't have a test. I mean, I got a paper with all the stuff that explains, but it's in Swedish, so I can't I can't show you the pictures. So yeah, but please tell me what you think about that. If there's any other model that maybe you've had to take at work, or if you relate to any of the 4 groups that I've described. I think the INFPs are probably mostly in the processor and the relator groups. But I can see us being producers as well if we're more FITE axis and are more rigid in our like we can act more like judges at times. We can also be motivators if we're using our NE a lot. But I do think that we're more on the introverted side of the scale, more of the follow along rather than the driven. So that's what I had to say about the IDI. Tell me what you think. Have a great day. Bye.